In a writing class that I took way back when, someone asked the teacher, well, what is conflict? And she said simply, 2 dogs, 1 bone. It's characters all wanting the same Maltese falcon statuette. Conflict is disagreement, it's argument, it's debate, it's fight, it's sometimes violence. It's one of the most difficult elements for most writers to produce. And I think that's because most of us do all we can to avoid conflict in our lives. Most of us want our days and our times and our situations to go smoothly. So we do everything we can to flee from conflict. And that's natural, that's human. The problem is when we sit at that computer or at a place where we have pen and paper and we're writing, we have a totally reverse mindset. We have to. We want, we welcome, we wish for conflict. And that's not easy to do. So while stories that revolve around action or mystery do provide easier avenues for conflict than, say, a romantic comedy, known in the business as a rom-com, there's a simple way to inject this conflict into romantic comedies. You keep the 2 people apart until the end of the movie. What we're there for is to see how these 2 people get together, to see how they overcome the obstacles that they have, to see if they don't get together, the nobility or one or both of them show by not hooking up. By keeping the couple apart, you create conflict. A former spouse or a lover comes in, a hesitancy to get involved at this time in one of the people's lives, or maybe both. The children who don't like the new other, friends who don't like the new other, mom and dad who don't like the new other, and well, you get the idea. Misunderstandings and missed opportunities abound. In Sleepless in Seattle, the couple doesn't even meet until the end. In 1,000 Clowns, Murray has to make an unwelcome decision in order to right things again. In Continental Divide, Ernie Socek, played wonderfully, believe it or not, by John Belushi, he's aping his actual real-life godfather, Chicago Tribune columnist Mike Royko. And he talks his love, Dr. Neil Porter, into the craziest of long-distance romances. Well, no matter what the conflict the characters find themselves facing, they must be encountering those problems in every sentence, every paragraph, every page, and certainly every scene. Basically, there's 3 kinds of conflict. The first is internal, that is, person versus self. The second is external conflict against something that's not human, which pits our characters against entities like nature, technology, religion, ghosts, monsters, societal more, and perhaps others I haven't mentioned. Then we have external conflict of person versus other people, which is a kind of conflict we see in most screen stories and the easiest kind to write. Let's take a look at each. In your screenplay, every good screenplay has a person who changes the most. Changing the most, for most of us, and in real life even, it produces conflict. In books and plays, that's easier. You can get inside a character's head. Film, however, is a visual medium. So how do we show internal change? Now, some stories try to show it with an external fight between the 2 characters who inhabit the same persona. Remember Superman 3? You have Superman fighting Clark Kent. Other examples would be Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, The Nutty Professor, The Mask, The Flash. These are all stories that show person versus self. But when you don't have that advantage of an easy visual, you have to figure out how to show change in the character through their actions. In Back to the Future, George at the beginning is a wimp. He's afraid of his boss, Biff. He's afraid to send out his novel out of fear it'll be rejected, which is a fear a lot of us writers have. And from time to time, he's incapable of standing up for himself. In fact, he's incapable all the time. What does George McFly turn into by the end of the story? At the beginning of Turner and Hooch, Tom Hanks' character is so regimented that his clothes, his actions, his life has to be done clockwork precision. By the end of the story, he's wearing loose clothing, he's playing with the slobbering dogs, enjoying a life with a little flexibility. So while internal change is not necessarily visual or easy, there are clever ways to show it through character change, action, dialogue, situation. Now we have the conflict of person versus non-human entity. For an example, man versus nature. Let's take a look at The Perfect Storm or Castaway. Another category is person versus technology. There's so many of those, but we can think of The Matrix or War Games. The conflict of person versus monster has filled screens in countless B-movies and Hollywood blockbusters to boot, including one of my favorites, Bambi Meets Godzilla. I highly recommend it. You can have a person versus religion in films like Dogma or even Sister Act. And we have Easy A or The Scarlet Letter as examples of person versus societal mores. The last kind of conflict, which happens to be the easiest to demonstrate, is person versus other people. Well, this can range from a series of minor disagreements in My Dinner with Andre to Clint Eastwood's Dirty Harry, daring a criminal to try his luck. At least one, if not two, or all three of these conflicts must be in every line, every page, every paragraph, every scene you write. Two people getting along is nice for those two people, but it doesn't sell tickets. Without conflict, your script won't stand a chance at securing a yes to a producer or an agent, and it certainly won't be there seeing that story up on the big screen.